What's going on, people? It's your man, the YB. Once again, big shout out to my dog. Oh, that vape juice, man, it's killing man slowly. You best believe it. Shout out to my doggy Clates Boxing for boosting up the coins. So, bash. We got some diabolical news for the great and washed masses right now regarding Terence, the Anunnaki, seed of the gods, Crawford. Turki Halal Sheikh has come out fixing Terence Crawford's next fight. He posts out this, leaked. This is a direct chat between me and Turki because Turki's plugged into the YB. You best believe it. He said, YB, what do you think about David Benavidez versus Crawford at 168 pounds? I told him, hey man, listen, that's dead. Yeah? Benavidez should be fighting Jai. If I was going to make some crazy fight with Benavidez, he's fighting Yardy, any. But after he assumptively has a go on Yardy, get him in there with a stinker, Jai. That's a proper fight, right? What should happen though? Turki's on the right lines here. Guess what does make sense? Oops. What does make sense is, and I told Turki this straight up, and he said to me, YB, I'm going to put you on as the matchmaker because your play is different. Yeah, Turki saw the lick I hit at the weekend. He saw the lick. Yeah, I see something. I told you before the fight. They said no Mikey Garcia versus Errol Spence. I told you before the fight. I see something. I saw something in Carrot Top that's sweet. I told you that. Fact documented. I told you. Crawford put him belt to arse on points. They say no Moody Hatman. Oh yeah, well, it could happen this way. In fact, Hatman, he was blowing smoke up Carrot Top arse. Oh, Carrot Top too big, too strong. That's what Hatman said, no doubt. I haven't watched his review video, but Hatman will be saying, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, nah, for sure. Crawford was going to be... Yeah, it was obvious Crawford was going to win on points. That's what Hatman will say. He'll say, yeah, I picked Carrot Top, but it was obvious. You know, yeah, of course. Yeah, I knew Crawford would win on points if he won. Well, obviously, Hatman. Yeah, obviously, if Crawford won, it was going to be in points. He weren't going to knock him out, was he? You see that one there? Anyway, let's start roasting Hatman. Yeah, let me take my foot off Hatman's neck right quick. It's alright, Hatman, you can breathe now, brother. Let me raise my foot up off Hatman's neck, man. Yeah, I ain't trying to be, listen, it's 2025, man. Yeah, I ain't trying to catch a George Floyd case on Hatman's ass right now. We don't need no more black on black, that's for sure. No doubt about that one. In fact, we don't need no more light skin on black action, man. Yeah, that's what we don't need. So don't worry, Hatman. You right down there, brother, yeah? I'll lift my foot up right now for you. Oh, head, man. Nah, you man are wicked. Yeah? You man are wicked. Listen, I respect my elders. I'm wrong. Yeah, I'm wrong. My hands were in the air. I shouldn't have... My bad. I repent. I apologise. I shouldn't have had my foot up so I had my neck. My bad, okay? My bad. Anyway, I told Turki, I said, listen, the real play, the leaked play, is Terence Crawford versus Dimitri Bivol. Right? If we're bringing big idiots from 175 in there with Crawford, I think the Bivol fight makes more sense. I think the Bivol fight's actually tactically better for Crawford. Benavidez, he can't punch, but the volume and the work rate, yeah. Carrot Top's a lazy 160 pounder really. He's pumped up to 168 himself. He's a lazy, slow-footed, done it all, prima donna type 168. The writing was on the wall. I thought it was pretty obvious in the end. I was sucking Carrot Top off initially, but that skull fight, I thought, oh, he stinks. He really lazy. He really lazy with it. You got a Cuban with 20% KO ratio and you're not putting belt to arse. You should have been all over him. This should have looked like a Pitbull Cruz fight. This should have looked like a Hagler old school fight. When Carrot Top's in there with Skull faffing around. Fact. But it didn't. It looked, one judge had Skull winning. Had him losing by one round. And I agreed with that. I thought it was a 115, 113 to tell the truth. Anyway, I think Benavidez, he's too big. And he does like output, which will be a hard night's work for Crawford. And, to be quite frank, Benavidez don't have dick to offer. If we're going with this narrative of Crawford's just knocking out undisputeds for fun, It would have to be Bivol. Not only, in my opinion, is that a more winnable fight than Benavidez, in my opinion, for whatever that's worth. Because the thing about Bivol is, Bivol don't stop no one, right? He can't. Come on, you telling me Crawford can't do as well as Lyndon Arthur, for example, or all the other plumbers he's fought? Bivol's fought a bunch of plumbers. He can't stop any of them. People, in fact, Craig Richards, he's nothing like Terence Crawford, but you get the point. Craig Richards, he's got that kind of gangly style. He was doing alright with Bivol in the last few rounds. Competitive. I think that fight was quite close. 116, 112, for example. So if Craig Richards can be in the fight with Bivol, I don't see why Crawford can't. And it would be a boring fight, but it would be very high level. Very high level. And I think Bivol, he hits you and moves out the way. Benavidez is going to be on you. And it's going to be work rate. So you're going to have to rely on being able to really stun Benavidez. It's not like Canelo, who's going to plod and you can essentially outbox him. The fact you've hit him 4 times and has hit you once means you can outdo Canelo. The fact Carrot Top's blowing all the time and only throwing single punches, it's a more winnable fight. Bivol, he's going to be throwing his hands much like Benavidez will. But like I say, there's no upside there. You beat Benavidez and Benavidez has done nothing on paper as such. Yes, Carrot Top ducked him, but who cares now? Whereas Bivol, I've got the whole narrative. You can go undisputed again. In a fight which, am I bugging? Is Bivol easier than Benavidez? Styles make fights. And I think with Bivol, it will be a pure boxing. Bivol ain't going to rough you up because of his weight. Benavidez is much more likely to rough you up because of his weight. And I did see, even at 168, there's no doubt, Crawford's not an idiot, but there's no doubt, it was clear the shots weren't as impactful. And Benavidez is he's clearly a 175er. He never should have been at 168. So Benavidez, I think Benavidez is 2 or 3 inches taller. Certainly 2 inches taller than Bivol as well. So he's even taller. And I didn't think Bivol looked like the bigger man against Canelo, but it wasn't like, whoa, he's bigger. I think Benavidez would be like, whoa, he's bigger type shit. Does that make sense? Bivol himself said he can make 168, so Bivol's not a massive 175er. Am I saying Crawford's the favourite? No. But if we're going to take a punt, do I want to see Benavidez versus Crawford at 168? Not really. No, I don't. In fact, that wouldn't... I mean, if he beats Benavidez, great. But what have you gained from that? If you're going to take a punt with a big weapon, you might as well take a punt for another undisputed strap. And to be quite frank, if Crawford was the underdog and he wants it, I'd back Crawford. If Crawford's a similar underdog, I wouldn't put money on Bivol. Bivol can find a way to win as well. He's not an idiot. I give him credit for that rematch. And the size, it will start adding up at some point. Crawford's going to be noticeably smaller in terms of height as well than Bivol. But listen, Crawford didn't win that fight on power. And I think the dog in Crawford, one thing Beterbiev showed, now I'm not saying would Bivol respect Crawford's power, who knows, but I'll mention this now. If you can walk into Bivol, he will put his earmuffs on and he'll back up. Does that make sense? Bivol likes to hop in, do a combination and get out of the way if you're pressing him. He likes to box. There's not as much... the worst case... Listen, the point is... Beterbiev could be Bivol could be a real... Benavidez could be a really hard night's work and you've gained nothing. And he's all over you. Unlike Canelo, Benavidez, he'll get right on top of you and put combinations out. Hard night's work. Right on top of you. Pause. Bivol, when he beats people, you lose on points. And it's not hard. Look at... 99% of people lose to Bivol on points, and you can't say they went for a grueling fight. They got outboxed. So strategically, you're going to gain more from beating Bivol, and it's a more winnable fight. And even if it's not, because Bivol's good technically, it's a much less risky fight. It's a much less, I lost on Bivol to points, like everyone else did. Does that make sense? Benavidez definitely has a better chance of stopping Crawford than Bivol does, just because of the styles. Yeah, being big and strong means more if you're pressing someone. Does that make sense? Bivol's big and strong. He's not pressing you. He's outscoring you, like he did with all the other idiots. His Fort and beat Lyndon Arthur, Craig, Spider Richards. Does that make sense? And we'll all be buzzing for that as well. Let's see how much of the sun gods this really guy is. To be quite frank, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing the Canelo rematch again. It's not going to do nothing for your legacy, but I think, listen, I see something. Yeah, what Crawford did to Canelo, I think he could proper whoop Canelo next time, honestly. But that'll be a repeat of what you've just done. I mean, listen, we give him credit for the Canelo fight. That is real greatness, end of the day. But a diabolical amount of greatness would be, I'm taking on Bivol. That is diabolical levels. Like literally. That would turn the YB homosexual levels of... Does that make sense? It's like, whoa, I want Terence to hang at the back of my light-skinned cheeks. That right? If Crawford pulled off beating Bivol, I would petition to have Crawford hang at the back of me. And I'm red-blooded. Yeah, I like broads. I like tricking. Right? That's what I likes to do. But still, that would be like, whoa, even daring. Canelo was one thing, but that was winnable. Even though, listen, the bookies said otherwise. The bookies had him underdog, to be fair. But still, that one there is ridiculous. He should never beat Bivol. But if he did, given the fact that in that Canelo fight, Crawford had gas to burn. He looked like he was in gear 1. And he was antsy to get at it, to be honest. He was antsy to get at it. But his trainer held him back. Meaning that he's got scope to add. Now listen, Bivol isn't. Bivol's more like Madrimov than he is. Not so much the head movement, though. I think Madrimov's really tricky. But the footwork's definitely similar to Bivol. He skips in, he skips out. Canelo's straight up and down, almost tailor-made. Slow as molasses with the feet. He's almost tailor-made for someone like Crawford. But who knows? Styles make fights and all that other rubbish they say. And that dog in Crawford. Bivol's got a dog as well, to be fair. But still, that's what makes it cool. There's no one else at 168. I don't want to see him fight Hamza. Again, Crawford should be in fun fights now that mean something. Canelo rematch. Even that though, I'd pick the Bivol at 175. Yeah? If this guy is true seed of the gods, let's see him in here with Bivol, man. You know what I mean? Bivol's not a massive 175 at the end of the day. He's quite short as well. But let's see this. Because we didn't really, honestly, the Canelo fight was a little bit of a letdown. Why? We didn't even really see Crawford tested. I saw him in gear 1. The whole way through. I didn't even see a need for him to change pace. Cruising. So I wouldn't mind seeing him redline. Does that make sense? He'd have to redline against Bivol to get the win, I assume. Because of the size difference, the height and the reach. He'd have to really go to town, which is what we were saying about this Canelo fight, and he didn't. But it's different, completely different. But that is the one I'd be like, oh my. And that would be unparalleled. If somehow Crawford, which I'm not going to write him off end of the day. I'm not going to. He's obviously the underdog, but I'll be backing him on points. Crawford on points. Because who knows what he can and can't do. Does that make sense? What were you going to say? Oh, yeah, but no. Yeah? That is what Turkey should be pushing for. Something diabolical. And you've got the money. Beterbiev, he went life and death with Bivol. But he went life and death in a different way. He went life and death chasing Bivol. We haven't actually seen if someone can outbox Bivol, which is what I assume Crawford would have to do. He's not got the power or the size to do what Beterbiev did. But Bivol's never been in there with the IQ of someone like Crawford, and it's important to note as well, I believe, thinking about it now, often people like Usyk and whatnot, how do they beat their opponents? They beat their opponents by being the quicker fighter, the higher IQ fighter, and the better footwork, etc., etc. My point. Bivol is much like Batara or Usyk. They beat people by their speed and their footwork and their IQ. Meaning, fighting Crawford, yeah, Bivol, for the first time in his career, more or less, he'd be the guy with the slower feet, the slower hands, and maybe a little bit of a lower IQ. Does that make sense? It's not always the myth that the big man always wins. That works when it's two stiff idiots fighting each other. One little small stiff idiot and a big stiff idiot. The big stiff idiot's more likely going to win. Does that make sense? Crawford, though, he may get the benefits that someone like a Usyk does at heavyweight. The things Bivol's doing, Crawford might be able to react quicker than someone like Beterbiev, who doesn't have as high an IQ as Crawford, who isn't as quick. So style makes fights, and it'll be a proper box off. You know what I mean? I'm sitting here thinking, because then political type fights, they can enable a smaller man into the fight. Size really matters when someone's pressing you and you're overwhelmed because the guy's too big. Then you're having a faff off, as it would be Crawford and Bivol. That becomes more like a Floyd Mayweather versus Canelo to some extent. You got a small man, little skinny old man, and you got a young bull. You see how we just played with him? Now, we haven't fully tested that. It would have been good to see Floyd versus Triple G at 160. That would have been more of a test, right? You got a big, strong dude, and Floyd's just playing with Triple G. That would have been wicked to see, but Floyd's a shithouse. Floyd didn't want to fight no people in their prime who are half serious. He didn't want to chase what Crawford's chasing. But since he's chasing it, does he need to retire undefeated? None of the greats retired undefeated. Floyd, for me, ain't really like that. He's political great. He El Shekel Talmud Rabbinic. That's what type of great he is. Come on. He weren't serious with it. But there's nothing... Listen, if Crawford went up to 175 and dared to be great, who's going to hold it? Oh, yeah, you've finished your career. No. That is why I do rate the old school. James Toney, Roy Jones. They really went up and up and up until they couldn't be stopped no more. But no one's saying we want to see Crawford at 50 getting plastered by plumbers who couldn't lace his boots when he was younger. But in this kind of situation, for 4 times undisputed, what was it, 4 times undisputed, in a fight I think you can win, in a fight that will be political, in a fight that will be fiddly, there's no way Bivol's going to steamroll Crawford, is there? And Crawford has shown me he's got the dog. Yeah? In them latter rounds, he was happy to have a tear-up with Bivol, with Canelo, which shows me if he needed to, and there's no telling that would mean he would beat Bivol, or it would make a difference. But if Crawford's down after 8, and what's his name, Bomac says, oh, go out, mate, it's belt to arse time, and Crawford has to lock in and chase it, I want to see that. I want to see Crawford down after 6 and having to chase a win. Let's see all he's got. Does that make sense? Let's see him have it now. It'd be a shame for him to retire without... We have never seen that, really. We've never seen Crawford have to flatline for the last half of a fight because he's down. And the other guy's in his groove. Let's assume Bivol's in his groove after 6 rounds and Crawford's got to go. I'm having a go now. Crawford's had a pretty coasty career. I'd say even more coasty than Floyd. Floyd, at the start of his career, had a lot of old schoolish men. Crawford just blew through it all. He blew out Julius Ndongo's back, some fake champion. Do you know what I mean? Crawford's had a lot more new age type champions who have just rolled over and got punched up. Floyd had a much harder start of his career than Crawford did. So we've never seen Crawford actually have to have a fight. He's been cruising and then maybe he does a round or 2, like Madrimov, like Sean Porter. He's not had to really battle for a win, and I don't think it's a bad thing as such to have that in one of your last fights with Bivol. Who knows? Maybe he goes in there and he takes the piss again, and it's easy. Not my base case. He'd have to do something super duper special. I mean, you know what I mean? This is the one Turkey. If you've got money to throw around, and Bivol isn't on that much money, I don't think Crawford's on that much money relatively to Canelo either. So that fight should be relatively cheap. Is it going to transcend, and is it going to be on Netflix? Maybe not, but if I'm Turkey, I don't want to see Benavidez and Crawford. Fuck that. In fact, I'd actively advise Crawford against that. I'd tell him, no, don't do it. I'll tell him that right now. For what? If you're gonna give me a big idiot, give me Bivol for the belts and trinkets, man. 4 belts, bosh. Or was it 3 belts? I think it might be 3 belts. But either way, we know Bivol's the undisputed. No one's gonna be butthurt that you didn't get all of them. If I was Turkey, I'd pay the WBC to take that belt from Benavidez and give it back to... Let's not forget, Bivol didn't lose the belt, so stop playing. Yeah, stop playing. Bivol didn't lose the belt, so he is undisputed still. Get Crawford in there, man. Plus, Bivol's coming off a back surgery or something. Oops. Yeah? Turkey get the bread up. Turkey tell Bivol, hey man, listen, whoop-de-whoop. Yeah? I've just got off the blow with the YB, and you're not having a warm-up. You're straight back in there with Crawford. Or you can go to the York Hall with Eggy Hearn and get paid 10 large to have a life and death with Beterbiev again at York Hall. Right? That's what I tell him. I say, listen, if you ever want to work with Riyadh Season again, you're fighting Crawford. Fresh out of hospital. It's up to you. York Hall, going life and death with Beterbiev for 10 large, or you can have 10, 20, 30 mil to fight Crawford. Straight up, no warm-ups. The stars are aligning, folks. The stars are aligning for Crawford to put belt to arse on Bivol. That is what I want to see. I don't want to see no more playing. Alright, anyway, let me know your thoughts, people. Smash the like button, subscribe. Check out my Patreon. We're finally, as well, listen, it took me a few days collating exclusive information from proprietarily sources. Okay. Look at this one here, look. We got the Charlie Kirkenheim investigation. Exposed by the YBO 2-hour documentary on what is going on with Charlie Kirk. Yeah, so if you want to know, click this bindy here and I'll plug you in. I'll plug you out. I'll unplug you from the J tricks. Yeah, Bosh, Johnny.